Welcome back to another video. It's been a little bit since I've recorded anything. For the last week or so, I've been in Washington State because my dad was accepting an award at a conference and he decided to take my entire family. A little bit of a vacation. It was really nice. I got to visit a bunch of national parks, actually touch grass for once, and just get away from the city for a little bit, get some peace and quiet. And since then, I also had a lot of time to think, and I wanted to talk about something that I thought about it for a little while, but I think this conference, going with my dad, has brought it up again. It's resurfaced in a way. So let's talk about it. Now, the award that he won was a very prestigious one for his field. I'm not going to say which field because that will reveal who my dad is, and as a result reveal who I am, but it is it's a big deal, basically. And my dad is a very successful person. My family is a very successful family, and we're pretty well off because of that success from all the grinding that my parents did back when they were students in their careers, all that stuff. And during the trip as well, I heard a couple of stories from my mom about her upbringing, and also a little bit from my dad about his upbringing. Some of these stories I already knew, but there are other ones that I also wasn't aware of. Because I was always under the impression that my mom was someone who is middle class. For context, they're both immigrants from China. My dad grew up pretty much in a farm in a pretty poor province. Didn't really have a lot of opportunities, but did really well on China's college entrance exam, and got into the best university in China, Tsinghua University. My mom, I always got the impression that she was middle class, not super well off, but also not, not struggling to put food on the table and all that stuff. And on this trip, she I guess revealed a little bit more of her childhood, and I realized that her family was not exactly rich because my grandmother had suffered a stroke when she was 40 and had to retire very early, and as a result my grandfather decided to also retire extremely early so that he could take care of her. And because of that, they were basically living on the equivalent of welfare services, and as a result they were struggling for money. It's just my mom wasn't aware of this until after she was in college. They made sure she was not aware of this so that she could enjoy her college life without worrying. Anyways, the reason why I bring this up is because I grew up in a very different atmosphere than my parents. I never really wanted for anything, because anything that I did wanted, I could usually get. I was lucky, and I was super privileged to live a pretty spoiled childhood, I think. But because of this kind of upbringing, because I have a lot of certain advantages that other people simply don't have access to, like a lot of the activities that I did in high school, or at least my most significant one, which was doing academic research, was essentially only possible because my dad is a professor and we have connections, right? So because of this, I feel like everything that I've kind of done, especially in comparison to what my parents have been able to achieve, despite the disadvantages they faced as kids, kind of puts an asterisk on everything that I do. And this is something that I've struggled with for a little bit, because I'm someone who, when I was growing up, had a very little self-esteem. Pretty much the only thing that I had going for me was that I just quote unquote smarter than a lot of other people, than almost everyone else. But even this has an asterisk on it, because I remember when I was a kid, I used to this is like kind of cringy to say now, but I used to think that like certain things were super easy and that people were stupid if they weren't able to do them. Like, for example, I used to think that people who weren't taking like 10 APs were lazy, or that they were dumb, or like they just didn't have the mental, like, not mental capacity, but just like the general capacity to do this. Even though to me it felt like something that was easy, I guess. But like looking back, a lot of it is because I had a ton of advantages that other people didn't have, right? When I was little, I was immediately placed into competitive math classes by my parents, many of which costed hundreds, thousands of dollars. By the time I was in 6th grade, I was helping my dad do background research for his research group, and because of that, I read a bunch of research papers, and that really helped my reading comprehension and stuff like that. So because of this, I was kind of, I almost came pre-installed with a lot of advantages. And I remember when, for example, when people were talking about like the SAT, I didn't study for the SAT, I still did well on it, and I used to think that, oh, right, like if you don't get like at least a 1500, you're just like incompetent. That was until like a lot of people who I thought and still think are much more hardworking than I am and have a lot more, I would say, potential than I do, didn't score as high, but like everything else still points to them being way more locked in than I am and potentially could ever be. So it was a little bit of a wake-up call, a necessary one, but at the same time, I think especially as I kind of progressed through high school, got a little bit older, got a little bit wiser, got a little bit less egotistical and arrogant, I think it also became kind of replaced by this thought of everything that I do is not because of my own ability, but because I got lucky. Lucky to be in the right environments at the right time, lucky to be born in the family that I was born into, and lucky to just have all of these opportunities that other people don't have access to. And I think that can kind of mess with your mental a little bit. It definitely messed with mine a lot, and I think also because of that, it did, ironically, kind of hurt my self-esteem at times, because I would see other people achieving more while having less, a worse starting point, and that, I don't know, the comparison is the thief of joy, but at the same time, you can't really stop things from stealing from you sometimes, right? So and this feeling has kind of persisted even into college as well. I remember when I was throughout the school year, I was trying so hard to get like an internship, because first of all, I wanted to stay in New York for the summer. I think that it's really cool to be able to live here during your formative years. But also past that, I think for the first time in my life, I also just wanted to really get something out of my own ability rather than have it essentially gifted to me by circumstance, right? So, and I eventually did. I got an internship. It was pretty cool for a little bit until it went to shit. And I think for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could be really proud of myself. I think that's really what I'm trying to talk to that's the point that I'm trying to get across, is that we should all be a little bit more proud of ourselves sometimes. Even if that pride is unjustified. Just because I think it's better to feel like you're the shit than to not, even if you aren't the shit. Just because I think having that confidence by itself is so valuable and will get you so far, as long as you don't let it get to your head. But because there's definitely been a lot of times where I thought to myself, oh, I can't do this thing with my own pure ability, even though looking back I totally could have, and it's caused me to miss out almost on some opportunities, and it still is to an extent, I think. I'll give another example, because I think this is one that right now, if I do have a mindset change, I could gain a lot more control over, which is essentially just career prospects. I've always been someone who wasn't really into fields like quantitative finance or software engineering or just like super technical stuff because I didn't think that I had the technical ability to do them. And to be honest, I still kind of don't. I think a lot of my skill set is based in things like soft skills, being able to get into the right rooms, being able to say the right stuff at the right time. And I think that is much more geared towards fields like finance. But even within the world of finance, there are a lot of things you can do, and one of the ones I've always put off is quant. I say a lot of the times that's because I'm not really interested in the field, the work that they do, which is kind of true to an extent, but I also think part of it is just I don't think I'm smart enough to be able to succeed into quant, to be able to get through the recruiting of quant. Like, I have friends that are literally in quant, and I see them and I just perceive them as like being so much smarter than me, right? So it does mess with your mental a little bit, I think, when you put yourself down a little too much. Because I think that if I, like, truthfully, if I did really, really commit to it and really, really grind it, I think I could be successful in this field. Because even for the things I don't grind, even for the things I entirely slack off on, I still usually end up doing decent to, at the very worst, still above a very solid average. Like, academically, I was not locked in at all this semester. But I still got, you know, a decent GPA. I wouldn't say it's good, but like compared to the amount of work that I put in, compared to what I got out of my first year, I think I got a very, very high ROI. But I think it's still the mindset of everything that I've ever achieved, everything that I've ever done that is good, it was not from my own ability, is holding me back a lot. And it still is holding me back a pretty significant amount. And by itself is almost a demotivator, because you're inherently kind of limiting yourself in your own ability when you think that you can't achieve certain things, or that the things that you have achieved weren't from your own ability. And also, I think it's always just important to remember that no one is really self-made. We all get help from somewhere or something. So yeah, but I think really what I want to end off with this video is to simply be more prideful of what you are doing, of your accomplishments, and to not just don't sell your own ability short. Not just the abilities that you gain, because honestly, knowledge is a commodity, right? With enough time, anyone can gain knowledge, but there are certain things that you can't really teach. Certain things that a little bit more natural, or at least, you know, you have to work very hard while also being very introspective in order to gain them. And I think these are the real qualities that separate the people who can from those that can't, not just the experience gap or the knowledge gap, because knowledge gaps can close. Anyone can put in the time to close a knowledge gap, but I'm just kind of yapping right now. I'm just like I'm just now realizing, but yeah, I don't really have much else to say, so I'm gonna end it off here. But thank you for watching. I'll see you later.